guys, welcome to the Overdrive Digital Show. At the outset, let me apologize to you in case there seems to be a lag in the internet connection today. It doesn't seem to be very great at my end. We are live across Facebook and YouTube right now, so feel free to jot down your questions in the comment section. Bert and Rohit will be joining us shortly on this live stream. Now we'll start off with the hottest and what Mahindra calls the daddy of SUVs. It has launched in the country starting at 11.99 lakh rupees. I'm talking about the Scorpio-N, of course. And Rohit found his way to this SUV to tell you whether it's really worthy of all the hype.
The Scorpio-N is designed to be the largest Scorpio yet, with a longer wheelbase and wider and taller dimensions, but the flat rear end and the slab sides make it look quite MPV-ish when seen from the rear three-quarter. The front end is the prettier angle then, highlighting the imposing stance of this SUV, which I think looks best in white or black or the forest green if you are the off-roading type. The detailing of the headlights is unmistakably Scorpio, but has a better throw and spread than before. The silhouette of the bonnet is typical Scorpio too, and Mahindra says that the face is the tallest and the widest in the class. Mahindra's love for brown interiors continues, and unlike most modern cars, the Scorpio continues to have a big stack of switches in the center console, all of which fall easily at hand and are exactly where you expect them to be, except maybe the SOS switch, which should have been roof mounted. It's 2 decades since the Scorpio originally launched, and now if you were to look at the timeline, look at the different vehicles in the timeline, you will see a massive jump in the fit and finish that they have achieved with the Scorpio-N. Especially all these shut lines, they're absolutely consistent. There's nothing to complain about. You get soft touch materials here where you can also see the stitching, looks quite premium, but you get scratchy plastics on the top. But just because these are scratchy plastics doesn't mean that it feels cheap or low rent. It actually doesn't. What I also like is the infotainment. The layout is carried over from the XUV700. It's a tile layout. I really like it. It's very easy to use and it's quite slick. And this infotainment is made to a 12-speaker Sony setup, and the audio is actually quite good. The audio quality is brilliant, and even when you turn it up, the punchy bass doesn't make any of the plastics rattle, and that is good news. The Scorpio, or the Scorpio Classic, is a big hit amongst politicians or such communities that need to carry gunmen, bodyguards, etc. because I'm told it's very easy to get in and out of the car with big rifles. That's for the second row as well as the third row. The second row seating, let's talk about that. It's pretty flat. I would have liked a little bit more contouring, a little bit more bolstering for long distance comfort. But otherwise, knee room, not a problem at all. Headroom, superb. Foot space, again, very good. Despite this being a rear wheel driven car, the transmission tunnel is not too tall, so you can place 3 people back here. However, because you have an integrated headrest for the middle row passenger, this space is only safe enough for 2 adults and a kid. The large glass house makes the cabin feel roomier still, and the tall seating ensures a good view outside of the windows. The second row also gets 2 AC vents and 1 USB-C port. Now, because I foresee the Scorpio-N to be a popular road tripping vehicle as well, I think more charging slots should have been provided. There is a 12-volt socket here at the back. You have devices on the sides to keep your phones, but more charging sockets would have been better. What it also needs very badly is a third row of AC vents. Just 2 vents up there in the second row, and that too on the floor doesn't really help or improve the cooling efficiency back here. As far as the comfort goes, well, this space is good enough only for kids. Yes, adults can sit here in a pinch. So they've changed the configuration for the third row of seating. It's no more on the side, it is a bench, which means boot space is a big worry. Even this small bag doesn't quite fit. I think it's good enough only for an umbrella. So it also doesn't fold flat. If you want to increase the boot space, that is all that's possible. 2 big suitcases may or may not be possible because, again, if you look at the boot floor, it isn't flat. You also have the mounting for the seat, and that also is quite noisy, especially when going over bumps. It just makes those creaking sounds. So overall, the boot space I'm not quite impressed with it. What I'm also quite impressed is the kind of view that it offers. You get that commanding view of the road. This has one of the tallest seating that you will find in SUVs around this size and price bracket. But not just that, even the A-pillar, it's quite slim despite the presence of this big handle right here. It's quite slim. Getting a good view around the corners is also not a problem. There are not many blind spots on this vehicle at all. The wing mirrors, they're nice and large, so even in tight parking spaces when you're maneuvering, it becomes quite easy. Yes, with this kind of a length, a 360-degree camera would have definitely helped. You can only get up to 2 cameras depending on the variant you choose. One at the rear, one in the front. Very low resolution cameras. Like the other 2 hits that Mahindra have delivered in the last 2 years, the Mahindra Thar and the XUV700, even the Scorpio continues to use the new set of engines that Mahindra has. That's the 200 PS petrol and the 175 PS diesel. Of course, there's also the 132 PS diesel, which can be had in the absolute entry-level variant of the Scorpio. This is the diesel automatic. It can be had in a manual transmission as well. This would be my choice. I think with the kind of intent that this vehicle has, carrying 3 rows of seats or 3 rows of people, and then also road tripping, also, maybe going on an adventurous drive, etc. I think the diesel auto is the best combination that you could choose. I love the tractability of this engine. I love how the gearbox has been tuned. I've been driving in the city traffic, I've been driving on the highway and also around twisties right now. And the only thing that I'm missing out on right now is paddle shifters behind the wheel. The Petrol Auto 2 is an absolute delight to drive because of the slick automatic transmission. But with single-digit fuel economy figures, it may not appeal to everyone. It has more eager responses than the diesel, of course, and the on-tap 200 PS output gives it equally good tractability for city and highway use. It's also got great refinement and its outright acceleration is quite impressive as well. But if you are more into road tripping, the diesel auto still remains my choice for the Scorpio. While most dads love investing in FDs, the Scorpio-N invests in FDD. That is frequency dependent damping. Essentially the same kind of hardware that you get in the Jeep Compass or Mahindra's own XUV700. But the configuration is slightly different. It has been tuned slightly different for the weight of the car, for the size of the car, etc. Now, what it essentially means is that it is much better at handling bumps, at handling undulations. And while all of that does work quite well, while the ride quality is quite good, you can still feel a lot of vibrations inside the cabin. In fact, you might have heard that in my voice. You can hear it right now as well. I'm not really feeling any jolts in my backside, but there is this constant pulsation inside the cabin coming from the suspension. And that isn't unnerving, it's not really uncomfortable, but it can get irritating at times. Especially when driving on concrete road surfaces, you can feel a lot of these pulsations all throughout the bodywork, through the seats, etc. So yes, the ride quality is quite good. It takes on potholes quite well, but these pulsations are something that I'm not liking much. This is something that we did not face with the XUV700. What they've also done is added multi-link suspension at the rear, 5 links. It's also got the Watts link type of configuration. That is something that we saw previously in the Ford Endeavour. So the suspension by itself, it sounds quite sophisticated, but at the same time, because this is married to a body-on-frame construction, it doesn't feel, say, as polished as the XUV700. Depending on the variant you choose, the Scorpio-N rides on 18 or 17-inch wheels, and the ride is quite comfortable even on the larger option. But with only 2 people in the cabin, the rear tends to jitter and bounce quite a bit. A common complaint that people had, especially the city dwellers with the outgoing Scorpio, was that the steering feels a bit too hefty. So they have consciously made the steering lighter with the new Scorpio. At city speeds, it feels brilliant. It's very light. In fact, maneuvering this car around tight parking spaces or even through tight traffic, it's very easy. Making lane changes at highway speeds is also quite easy. The highway stability or the high-speed stability of the vehicle is quite nice. I just wish that at highway speeds, at triple-digit speeds, the steering weighed up better. It just remains far too light even at highway speeds. And even with the variants that have the different drive modes, that zip zap zoom like the XUV700, even in the zoom mode, you don't really get a lot of heft from the steering. It doesn't weigh up all that well. It just feels very light. Some of you may like it, some of you may not. The other bit that I'm impressed with is braking, be it mid-corner braking like this or even braking at highway speeds, braking hard at highway speeds. There's not a pronounced nosedive. That is something that we complained about with the previous generations of the Scorpio. Here it doesn't feel squishy, too soft. So it's not just helping it remove that unnerving feel, it's also making sure that the occupants don't feel uncomfortable under braking. The safety equipment is pretty impressive too, and the top-end models will get you up to 6 airbags, multi-mode traction control, and the 4 Explore variants will get you terrain modes as well. So Scorpio continues to be a rear-wheel driven car. So even in its basic configuration, it is a 4x2. The power is fed to the rear wheels, and like I said, this is the third generation of the ladder frame chassis, and there is a proper 4x4 available as well. But for that, let's go off the road and talk more about it. The off-roading kit includes 4 high and 4 low options, and off-road enthusiasts or even institutional buyers will be able to specify the 4x4 with this kit even in the Z4 variant. The higher trims use a more advanced 4x4 system, which also adds 4 terrain modes that will not only alter the traction control and other electronics, but also the behavior of the 4x4 system. To that effect, it also has a lockable differential. Astonishingly, all the off-roading that you see here is on the stock MRF Wanderer all-terrain tires. If you road trip often and off-roading is something you do only once in a while, I suggest choosing the Scorpio-N over the more hardcore Thar. It will offer you better comfort and features and is a better fit as an everyday car. The bigger question is though, would you choose the new Scorpio over the XUV700? If you need something that is stylish, sophisticated and easy to drive, it is the XUV700. But if the robustness of a body-on-frame SUV is what you want from your daily driver, the Scorpio is the easy pick. In a nutshell then, it offers more value than something like the Fortuner, is a big leap forward for a Scorpio, and despite sticking to an arguably old-school structure, it feels agile and easy to drive as a modern-day SUV should.
Well, you might have got a notification already earlier this week that there is a detailed review. Rohit has, spoken about this car in detail as well. Let's get Rohit and Bert on the show right now to answer all your questions. Hi, Rohit.
Hello, Sohini.
Hi,
Hi,
Sohini.
Bert.
Hello, guys.
Hello, everyone.
Right. Firstly, I just want to ask you, you said that, people have to make up their minds whether they want to go for the Scorpio or they want to buy the Scorpio-N or the XUV700. But tell us, will there be long waiting periods for this as well?
I'm guessing so. I mean, that's this is their third hit in the third row in succession. We've already seen a long waiting period for the Thar and the XUV700, and while the supply chain has sort of eased out and the semiconductor issue is not as big a problem anymore, there's still going to be a long waiting period. I mean, I was just told that the XUV700 is still commanding an 18-month long waiting period. So with the Scorpio also, with the kind of excitement that I'm seeing, after we posted the review, and we've been seeing a lot of excitement, a lot of queries coming in from various people. So I'm guessing that even the Scorpio is going to have massive bookings. In fact, I am expecting a press release anytime now. Maybe by Monday or Tuesday, there'll be a press release by Mahindra, again, quoting some big booking numbers. So yeah, I'm expecting a long waiting period for this car as well.
So what's happening, Sohini, is okay. So guys, what's happening actually is Rohit. So the semiconductor shortage is still there. Okay, it's not gone away, and it's not going away anytime soon. It's going to be there. But Mahindra is effectively manufacturing these cars now. What they've said also is that deliveries will begin sometime in September, October, I believe September. Right. So in the interim period, they're going to be ramping up production slowly, of course, but they will make sure that they've got enough cars in production to start delivering and taking care of the shortfall that could probably be there. That gap between delivery and the demand and delivery. The production that will happen, that will take place now, will essentially make sure that it isn't as bad a situation like when they faced with the XV700. So they are prepared for it. They have anticipated that the demand will be high. They've already started preparing for it, which means production is already rolled out, and the cars are being stocked up at this point in time. And within the next 2 months or 3 months is when they will start delivering the Scorpio-Ns. Now, the other thing also is, and this is also very crucial, is what Mahindra announced is that deliveries, once you place an order, when you book for the Scorpio-N, you will have a window of about 28 or 30 days within which to close your booking and pay the final amount, so that way they're able to manage inventories better. Because what they've also seen in the past is that because of the long waiting periods, a lot of people have cancelled their bookings, and this has created a lot of confusion, or other also prolonged the delays for other consumers. So just to give you an example, if you had to have the Z4 variant or the Z6 variant, you had to order a Z6 variant and you had to spec it in a particular manner. uh, Mahindra would start production, and then somewhere down the line, because of the delays in production, because supply chain was weak, semiconductor issues were on, the consumer would cancel that order, but Mahindra would be left with a vehicle that they had to deliver to somebody. And until and unless someone ordered that configuration again, they were lying with dead stock as well. So this created a lot of inventory management issues also. So this time, what Mahindra is doing is very, very cautiously approaching this concern. And what they're saying is that once you place your order, you will have to fulfill that order within 28. So you have a 28 or 30-day window within which you will make sure that you are booking, or rather you are ordering the Scorpio-N. Which also means that if you've paid that deposit, the down payment for the Scorpio-N, that may not be refunded back to you. So it makes sure that customer is committed to that purchase and does not create further chaos and confusion within their entire inventory management system, which I think is a good thing to do. Because yes, once you place an order, you better not change your mind, because it effectively creates a lot more chaos for customers down the line.
It also raises questions, right? Would manufacturers think of not, coming up with so many options to cater to the customers because of these kind of situations? Would it make it easier to have just a few options then?
Well, you can't do that, because if you just look at
Because competition is.
not the competition, you just look at the trim lines that are the natural trim lines. For instance, you've got the petrol and you've got a diesel option. You've got a manual transmission and you've got an automatic transmission, and you've got a two-wheel drive and a four-wheel drive option. So that's just 6 options that you have in any case. Now, at the bare minimum, what Mahindra has done also is added probably a couple of variants here and there within the entire lineup, and it still takes you up to about 10 odd variants that you could buy the Scorpio in. That by itself is a fairly large inventory to manage. 10 variants is a fairly large inventory to manage. So it doesn't matter what the competition is doing at this point in time. What matters is that just how well is Mahindra going to be able to manage this inventory. Because yes, the demand, what we've seen so far, there are a lot of questions, there is a lot of interest. People definitely are asking and wanting to purchase the Scorpio, and I have received a number of WhatsApp messages saying, "Can you already expedite my delivery? I'm thinking of buying this Scorpio, and can you help me expedite my delivery?" And to which the only answer that I have for them is that, sorry, but you just have to wait, because no manufacturer today is in a position to cater to the kind of demand that has grown in the last few months. We're seeing it's not just with Mahindra, with every other manufacturer as well. So yeah, it's not about having too many variants in the market. The demand is that high. Even if they had to do just one variant or two variants for that matter, the demand would really skyrocket, and even that would be very difficult to fulfill. So they need to spread around their choices as well. Make sure that consumers have got enough of choice, not too much of it, not too little of it, and they have to find the right balance. And that's essentially what Mahindra has done. They tried very hard to find the right balance in terms of the product mix, what kind of variants they're going to have to offer to consumers, and of course the price points as well, which is another very crucial point. And the thing I had to make over here also is that when you look at the pricing, going up to about 18 lakh rupees for the Scorpio, and that feels fairly steep, and that is very expensive. But I was talking to some of the Mahindra officials at the launch event, and what's very clear, and this affects the entire automotive industry, is that the price of commodities has gone up and considerably gone up. So inflation, price of commodities, all of this effectively affects the pricing for any product that's coming out of the market, which is why we're also seeing a steep rise and most of the manufacturers increasing prices for their vehicles. This is inevitable and it cannot be avoided. It just cannot be avoided. So, yes, prices seem steep, but Mahindra is also anticipating that this time around they could perhaps be a higher demand for the middle order variants, which is that Z4, Z6, I think variant, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's where they're seeing, they're expecting or anticipating a higher demand coming in for those variants rather than the top end variant.
Okay, I was just trying to give you a look at what the competitors also is priced like. We have that price comparison, in fact, on Instagram as well, so people can take a look at that. Um, we also we'll just quickly first wrap up all the questions. There are quite a few which are coming in. Rohit, there was one about the tailgate. Suraj wanted to know, as in the XUV 700 tailgate, are there thermoplastic body panels in the Scorpio?
Well, they couldn't confirm, but yes, it feels very light, and yes, it is of a similar nature. It's a similar material that they've used even for the Scorpio now.
Yeah, there are lightweight materials. Not, I would say lightweight materials, but yes, there are thermoplastics being used in the body panels, especially in the
Yes.
interiors, of course, the interior panels, of course. And like in the Scorpio, and we've seen this in the past also, they're fairly large panels. Keep in mind, we still got the side opening tailgate. It's not the top loading or the top opening tailgate, which is a bit tricky, to be honest. I mean, I think I would have thought that Mahindra would have kind of moved away from that design element, because what happens with this and what we've realized is that if you're in a parking situation where you don't have enough space, and keep in mind this is a fairly large or rather wide tailgate. Opening it up sideways creates all sorts of problems, and it would have just been easier for Mahindra to actually have changed that perspective and gone for a top mounted or rather top fastened opening to the top, opening to the sky tailgate, rather than doing the side opening bit that they've done and that they've continued to do in the Scorpio.
Okay, Mangesh wants to know that how is the ride compared to a Duster?
So the ride is much more supple compared to the Duster. The Duster still feels it's not as supple as the Scorpio. So if you like the sort of soft, cushy ride of the previous generation Scorpio, it has been carried over here without really hampering the driving dynamics. We've always seen that the Scorpio has never been a great handler, but the new one, it handles quite well for the kind of size and the height that it is. So yeah, compared to the Duster, this is definitely more plush.
Okay, Anjuraj wants to know, any chance Mahindra will change the rear parking camera in the Scorpio-N? Just a big letdown for this vehicle.
That was one of my first feedbacks for them, that the camera, both the cameras, not just the reversing camera, but even the forward-facing camera, they are, I don't know what generation they have come from. They are so laggy, and in fact, we had a situation where when we were shooting, one of the other guys who was also shooting in the same location, almost ended up reversing into another oncoming car, because he just couldn't anticipate on the reversing camera the speed of the other car, and it could have been a mishap. Thankfully, the other car stopped, and so did he in time. But yeah, I mean, it is just a hazard waiting to happen, because it is quite choppy, and especially in low light conditions, the camera feed becomes even worse. It becomes even more laggy. So I hope that they make changes there as soon as possible.
Okay, people want to know more about the AC vents in the third row. You've mentioned it in your review, though, the longer version.
No, there are no third row of AC vents. You only get AC vents for the second row, and that too in the floor. It's not roof mounted. In fact, if you look, go back to the video, or if you look at the walk around that we did as well, if you look at the way the headliner has been scooped out, it feels like there was space for AC vents as well. And maybe it was a decision later in the development cycle that they decided not to go with the roof mounted AC vents. That is what it feels like. Even the placement of the rear speakers, it feels like a bit of an afterthought. That's always been a Scorpio problem. Even in the previous one, the speakers just seem to be bolted on in the door pad. But instead of those two speakers, I would rather have AC vents because the cooling is quite a bit of a problem. The front row cooling is quite good, but the second row also, the floor mounted AC vents aren't very effective. And in this kind of rainy weather as well, the third row was getting quite warm when we were shooting it. So I think they definitely needed the third row of AC vents as well.
So I have a point to make over here also, Rohit. And one of this, first of all, guys, Devdata, this is not a 3-row SUV. Just bear that in mind. This is still a 2-row SUV. The third row, they're side facing seats. They're jump seats, essentially in the Scorpio.
No,
Do
no,
they
no,
have
they
a,
aren't. They aren't.
they have a
They've
front
made a
facing?
bench now. They moved to a bench, just the way it was introduced on the S11 variant of the outgoing Scorpio. So they've made a proper bench now in the third row. So
Because the
yeah,
variant I
which is
saw a
again
variant at the launch, Rohit, and one of those variants was the third row seat. It wasn't the third row seat; it's basically those jump seats on the sides, which was a characteristic trait of the Scorpio. And even in the Bolero, for instance, they had
they
these
should have
side.
done that. They should have done that, but unfortunately, they've gone with the single bench.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I do recollect they have a third row bench as well. But
Yeah,
one thing,
they have a
another
third row
point that I need to
bench.
make here, another point that I wanted to make also here is that if there's one thing that Mahindra does extremely well is the air conditioning system. And every previous car of theirs that I have ever driven, the air conditioning has been phenomenal. In fact, I still remember years ago when we had done an AC test, and the winner was the Mahindra Bolero, and
Right.
grill temperatures went down to like -1 or -2, which is extremely cold. You don't sense that, and that was
Correct.
in a Bolero which had just the AC vents on the front on the dashboard. So I guess it's a little bit of management and trying to figure out how to effectively use that air conditioning. But I do believe, and XUV also wasn't too bad at all. It was pretty impressive. So I think it'd be the same HVAC system, and I think the cooling should be quite effective. But yes, with the third row, essentially they should have had blowers if they're going to put a third row, or at the very least a selectable or an airflow selectable blower system in that middle row, which would you could speed it up or slower the lower the speeds of the vents or the blowers. That should have been essential.
Okay, Mayur wants to know, do we know anything about the safety rating for the Scorpio? Will it get a 5-star safety rating? Will it score?
Too early to say, Mayur. The car will still have to be taken for the NCAP testing. And now, whether it will be a global NCAP or will it be an India NCAP, I'm not entirely sure. But we'll have to wait and see what that rating is. It's just too early.
All right, and here's one more question. Can you compare the seating position compared to the previous generation car? What does it feel like?
It's pretty
It's
impressive.
gonna yeah.
It's quite impressive.
Good.
It feels fairly car-like to drive in that sense. It doesn't have that commercial vehicle truck kind of a feeling that the previous generation Scorpios used to have. And I thought it was quite well sorted out. The edge points were very very smartly placed, positioned. The seats felt comfortable. The steering wheel was adjustable properly. So in that sense, it feels as contemporary as it can get, and which should be a fairly relaxing, comfortable position to be in for long durations of time. What I don't like is that feel of that steering wheel. I think Mahindra really needs to work on this element because chunky does not always mean better. It's like more doesn't always mean better, and I think they need to probably tone that down a little bit and instead of doing this big fat thick steering wheel, probably go in for a slightly narrower band rather than what it is like right now.
All right, can we compare the Scorpio-N with the Safari? Which one would you say is better?
Top of my head, I'd pick the Scorpio-N.
Okay.
But having said that, Anjuraj, having said that, I'd also add over here that I do, if I recollect and if I remember it right, the quality of materials used in the Safari definitely feel better than the quality of materials used in the Scorpio. I didn't really like the plastic quality, especially on the dashboard, the steering wheel, the buttons and knobs. The quality of plastics didn't feel top notch, and I understand where they're coming from because this Scorpio-N is actually supposed to sit or rather sits below the XUV7, below and in terms of luxury and refinement, it's not supposed to be in that premium space, but more of a larger mass volume segment player. And so they didn't want, or rather, they wanted to make it good, affordable, and affordable meant using a little more affordable products, materials as well in construction, and it's evident. I felt the quality of like I said, plastics wasn't great, not too bad either.
All right, petrol head and foodie is confused between the Hyryder and the Scorpio-N. Isn't it too early to be confused?
Exactly. I mean, we haven't. No one's driven the Hyryder. We don't know what it is like. So it's a little too early to actually see what either of these can do. But what's interesting is that yes, both of them offer 4x4 abilities. The Hyryder's, of course, got that terrain selector mode, and it should be able to do something very interesting. But it would also while it's great having that drive mode, those multiple drive modes, multiple terrain modes. It'd be interesting to see how many consumers actually go in for that variant and if it is successful or not. Because let's face it, at the end of the day, most Indian consumers aren't the kind that go off road, would never even venture anywhere close to that. So it kind of becomes a moot point in an SUV at this price point.
But you spoke about the steering, right? Because Srikiran wants to know how is the hydraulic steering in the Z4 diesel variant? Is it manageable in cities?
Shrikaran, we did not get a chance to drive the Z4 variant. That's the base variant. So we haven't been able to try the 4x4 system on that either. It runs a different 4x4 system. It's derived from the Thar, the 4x4 system, whereas the one in the higher end Scorpio is a different system and it's got a lot more electronic aids as well. So the Z4 variant is what we haven't driven. I have requested Mahindra if they could let us have a go at it. So if they are able to work that out, we'll certainly have a separate review for that, because I'm guessing a lot of institutional buyers, a lot of off-road enthusiasts could also end up choosing that Z4 4x4 variant. If they don't necessarily need all these creature comforts, they just want a larger cabin as compared to the Thar, and a bit more finesse as compared to the Thar. So I'm guessing that is going to be another popular variant. It's not going to be only the top of the line or the second from top, but also the Z4 that could be popular. So let's hope that we are able to get our hands on it for a review.
All right, and Akash wants to know
Two
how
more
much of a
questions. Really, I want to take one question. There's Pawnaj who's quite insistent and has messaged us quite a few times. Is Chevrolet coming back to India, guys? No, Chevrolet is not coming back to India. Period. All right. And the other one, which is an interesting question, is Ravi Jayavijan, who's asking for highway plus once in a year Himalayan drive, which is better, XV700 all-wheel drive or the Scorpio-N 4x4? Ravi, okay, this is how it works. The XV700 is an all-wheel drive powertrain. And Mahindra's all-wheel drive powertrains have never been exemplary. They've never been fantastic. While they can do some stuff of some bits of off-roading, they're never really all that great. And proof of the pudding is in eating it. And Mahindra themselves never use the previous generation XUV in any of their great escapes. So that tells you that the all-wheel drive system isn't all that great. So yes, if you are going into the Himalayas, what you would want is a far more confident 4x4 SUV, and for that, the Scorpio-N is your only option. Otherwise, at least until we test the Hyryder from Toyota.
Rohit, you got a chance to drive this off-road as well, but to answer Mayur's question, will it be able to clear bonnet deep water?
No,
Well,
no
if it's bonnet
SUV
deep
would be
water, obviously it's going to suck in all that water as well.
exactly.
So no, it's not going to clear
Not gonna do
bonnet
that.
deep water.
Very few.
But yeah, on that note, they haven't given us the figures yet for the water weighting capacity of this vehicle. Understand this is a fairly tall vehicle. The bonnet is sitting fairly tall, one of the tallest in class. But yes, you will need certain modifications. You will probably have to have a snorkel to be able to get into that kind of territory. But in its stock setup, no, it can't go into bonnet deep water.
Okay, and Shuffmeister wants to know, have they overcooked the suspension with all that tech? Why those pulsations?
Which is a good question, Shuffmeister. I think that's a phenomenal question because at this price point, do you need that kind of suspension? Do you need all of that techie bits? Do you need multi-link in this segment? Uh, Great question, and it's a question that I wanted to ask Velu as well. Is that have you overcooked the suspension? Is that too much for something of this order? Do you really need all of those techie bits, the FTD, and of course the multi-link? Is it really necessary? I don't entirely think so. I'm not entirely sure. It's great that it's there, no doubt about it. It's fantastic that it's there, but to that level, to that extent, I'm not certain. And at this price point, these are expensive suspension systems. I'm kind of questioning or wondering how is it that Mahindra is able to offset that cost, and if these suspension systems are really optimized as well as they should be, because it works ideally for particular reasons. And I'm not sure if the Scorpio is the reason that they would need, multi-link and FTD and things like that.
Okay.
So yeah, Mahindra hasn't had a clear answer on why the pulsations. I did point it out to them, and it wasn't on a single vehicle that I was driving. I had a go at multiple different variants: diesel, petrol, automatic, etc. And it was common across all of them, and they didn't really have an answer to that. And have they overcooked the suspension? I sort of agree to even what Bert said. I think they have thrown everything at it purely to make sure that it doesn't feel like a boat anymore. That was the biggest concerns that everyone had. But has it completely worked? In terms of, yes, reducing the body roll, it has worked for its tall stance. It has better driving dynamics. Doesn't feel unnerving anymore. But at the same time, those pulsations, they can get irritating after a while. They do iron out a little bit if you're traveling with about four people in the car. But if it's usually just going to be you and your driver, or only you driving the car, then there is a fair bit of pulsations from the suspension. So I think a little bit more refinement is required there.
Okay, I see a lot of questions coming in about the Brezza and the Hyryder, but we'll come to all of that. We'll just quickly run through news. I'll read one, then I'll come back to the questions about that particular car. So we'll first start off with the Maruti Suzuki Brezza. They've given the popular compact SUV a major facelift. Prices start at 7.99 lakh rupees for the base manual variant, going up to 13.96 lakh rupees ex showroom for the top of the line automatic variant. This compact SUV now gets a new K Series 1.5-liter mild hybrid petrol engine, which comes with an automatic transmission with paddle shifters, offers more mileage than before, gets noteworthy features like head-up display, latest generation of Suzuki Connect with over 40 advanced features, electric sunroof, wireless charging, 360 view camera, and a lot more. The Brezza also offers over 20 safety features, including 6 airbags, ISOFIX child seats, hill hold assist, etc. I won't get into more details because we've just driven this car and we'll get you all the details soon. So do set a reminder, keep the bell notification icon on for the detailed review as well. So coming back to the questions that I saw, just
So there's one question, Sony, that I want to take. Very interesting one.
Brezza one more.
Um, no,
We won't go to
Brezza.
the high rider yet.
No, not the Hyundai. I actually wanted to do this
Ah,
for the Scorpio again. With Bhargava has got. Why do body on frame SUVs get rear wheel drive setup? Very interesting question again, Bhargav. Okay, so the traditional body on frame, the ladder chassis frame, that is constructed, or rather still is in service for off-road SUVs, where you require higher torsional rigidity. You want a stronger frame that can handle off-road work, and for that, ladder frame chassis are the best. Now, when you're constructing a ladder frame chassis, also, what you want is four-wheel drive, and for a four-wheel drive, you got a rear differential, and that's how the rear-wheel drive setup comes in play, because it's not cheap to make two different setups, one front-wheel driven and one rear-wheel driven. With the rear-wheel driven setup, you construct the ladder frame in such a way that it can take up that rear-wheel drive, the rear differential, and that makes it easier to construct everything else and put everything else around it, rather than making two different setups for that matter. And that's why most body on frame SUVs get a rear wheel drive setup rather than giving up front wheel drive alone. So that's the only reason why you have most body on frame SUVs having a rear wheel drive setup.
I was just trying to. There was a question someone was asking about the boot space of the Brezza versus the Scorpio. I'm just trying to look where that question is.
Um,
But again,
yeah, no brainer. Two different segments of SUVs, please, very different from each other. So I don't think there's a comparison over there, to be honest.
all right. Ross wants to know, there seems to be confusion around the Brezza's platform. Is it really tech or hard tech?
Um, your guess is
Well,
as
as
good as
far
mine.
as as far as
Hard tech.
I know, it's the hardtech platform. It's a modified version of that platform, slightly modified, not heavily modified either. Something like what we saw with the Baleno. It's not a completely re-engineered car, though there is fair bit of modification that has happened on the platform. And I think with all the negative publicity that the hard tech had in terms of crash safety norms and everything. I think that's the reason why they've decided not to use that word anymore. But it's still a modification of that platform. Remember, this is not an all new car. It's an evolution of the previous Brezza that we've been driving, the Vitara Brezza. So it's still very much that platform.
So,
Okay,
so
then
Shwani,
getting-
just come back to the question. Just come back to the question that I was answering earlier, and Shafmeister made a valid point over here. Also, Mahindra Marazzo is an exception to the ladder frame plus rear-wheel drive chassis setup. It has front-wheel drive. Like I said again, most SUVs which doing off-road work require the rear-wheel drive setup because you got to power, you got to send torque, distribute torque to all four wheels. But where an MPV is concerned, you don't necessarily require the rear-wheel drive setup. So, in the case of Marazzo, the ladder frame is still being used, but they could develop it with a front-wheel drive parted, and that's essentially why it has got it's a ladder frame chassis. It's cheaper to manufacture, it's cheaper to assemble, it's cheaper to the work effectively is cheaper on that, but you still get a lot of rigidity. You still get, and remember, Mahindra had ladder frame chassis before this, so it's a simple extension, or rather just carrying forward the technologies and the expertise that they had and applying it to the vehicle like Marazzo. But the Marazzo is an MPV, it doesn't require rear wheel drive, and that's why they made a purely front wheel drive powertrain for it.
Okay. Moving on to the next bit of news, Toyota India has pulled off the covers of their first affordable mid-sized SUV for India. Bookings for the Hyryder have opened. Price announcement is expected in August. Now, this SUV will be powered by Toyota's 1.5-liter TNGA Atkinson cycle motor that makes 92 PS and 122 Newton meters of torque. This motor is paired with a 177.6 volt lithium-ion battery that offers up to 25 kilometers of range on electric only mode and will make 79 PS of power and 141 Newton meters of torque. This self-charging hybrid increases fuel efficiency by 40 to 50%, estimated to be in the range of 25 kilometers to the liter. The Neo Drive version will be powered by the same 1.5-liter K15C mild hybrid powertrain that's doing duty in the newly launched Brezza, equipped with the first in segment all-wheel drive. The version will be paired to a 5-speed manual and 6-speed automatic transmission. Some of the noteworthy features highlighted during the launch were wireless charging, 360-degree camera, the head-up display, a panoramic sunroof. While in terms of safety, Toyota has equipped it with most of the expected safety kit, along with connected car tech that's compatible with Google Assistant and Siri. So this SUV will go up against the likes of the Hyundai Creta, Kia Seltos, Skoda Kushaq, and Volkswagen Taygun. Okay, so coming back to questions about this.
Gotta go. Bye. Sorry. I'm out of town, guys. Half hour out of town. You can see Rohit.
But why don't you show us also where you are, no?
This is what you're missing out on. If you can see that there.
BMW Motard days.
Yes.
Rohit is feeling horrible. Rohit, you're on mute.
Rub it in, bud. Rub it in. Rub it in.
And he's the BMW owner.
And here I am
Okay,
sitting on my balcony.
Coming back to
Just
questions
to
about...
inform you guys, I'm sitting here in Berlin, attending the motorcycle event here in Berlin today. Had an early morning flight from Valencia. 5:50 in the morning was my flight from Valencia. Got me to here to Berlin now, and tomorrow I'm going to be heading for the motorcycle festival.
Yeah, so everybody follow Bert's Instagram stories, so we'll know what Bert is up to. He's having a very exciting week.
Yeah, I'll block him for the next 2 days.
No, don't do that because you're headed to the Ducati festival. Okay, so let's not even go down there.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. So how reliable is Toyota's hybrid electric option for longer than 12 years usage?
No problem whatsoever, Aurora. No problem whatsoever. Toyotas, first of all, are built bulletproof. Right. So there's no issue with Toyota's quality. The hybrid electric option, again, not too much of an issue. Those batteries will last much longer than that, for that matter. So absolutely no issue with this. 12 years shouldn't be an issue at all.
Okay, so can you please explain what does Toyota mean by mild hybrid versus strong hybrid?
So mild hybrid versus strong hybrid, there are two ways of looking at it. Now, mild hybrid essentially is which uses an additional battery to power certain other functions alone in the car. It might give you mild, very, very, very mild enhancements in efficiency, in fuel efficiency. Now, a strong hybrid is essentially what the Honda City hybrid is like. Okay, the EHEV. And that's a proper or a full hybrid system where the battery can effectively drive propels a motor which drives the wheels, and the car can be driven purely on electric power, does not require petrol or diesel for that matter at all to run. That is a strong hybrid. This also works in a variety of ways where the electric motor could be the principal motor, not the petrol engine, like in the case of the city hybrid, where the petrol motor is effectively used to charge the electric motor, which then drives the front wheels, which drives the front wheels. Yeah, that's a strong hybrid. In the mild hybrid, there are certain functions where like the air conditioning, the lighting, the sound system, all of those functions. The power is drawn from a battery, which is powered by the engine movement, and which essentially charges the battery. There's small, mild benefits, very, very mild benefits to the efficiency. To what extent? Well, in the case of Toyota, we'll know once we test it completely. But it's not, like I said, it's not like a full hybrid. You cannot run the engine on electric motor alone.
Right. S the Great says he was waiting for the Hyryder and the Suzuki version for a very long time, but he's very disappointed they didn't give it a 1.4 liter booster jet engine or a 2 liter hybrid engine.
Yes, I'm quite disappointed as well. Like I just started following up what was happening on the Hyryder launch thing, and the one thing that I kind of what disappointed more than anything, and more than the lack of the engines and at least the trim levels that they got, is that this Hyryder still looks very much like what Maruti would have made. And from what I understand, it was supposed to be a Toyota vehicle, which Maruti would kind of get inspired by and make their vehicle, but it actually looks like the other way around, where looks more like a Maruti vehicle, which Toyota has rebadged and selling out under the Toyota brand name. And that was kind of that's a bit of a disappointment, especially where the styling is concerned. I thought it looks too much like a Maruti. Even the interiors be too Maruti-ish. And I thought I expected a lot more from Toyota in that respect. But I'd actually reserve final judgment for when we drive the car, which hopefully should happen soon.
Akash Rana is saying the option of an all-wheel drive on the Hyryder seems to be an oddity with that mild hybrid engine. What possible merit could it have?
Well, let's look at it like this. One, it will give you some amount of off-road ability, as much as the XUV 700 would, for instance. Mild off-roading. But let's look at it from the other perspective, is that when you're on all-wheel drive, what you will get for sure is better tractability, better drivability, and better maneuvering or cornering for that matter as well on road conditions. And that's essentially what I would look or rather use this all-wheel drive system for, is to get better cornering abilities, or so that I can just drive faster where I want to drive. That does not mean I'm encouraging you guys to drive faster, put down to all-wheel drive and go, spinning around the block. But yeah, it gives you a safety net, a security blanket, which enhances the driving experience overall.
We have one more question about the Scorpio-N. Srikaran wants to know, will Mahindra provide third row split seats in the Scorpio anytime soon?
Third row split seats. I don't exactly know what you're talking about, Srikaran. What do you mean?
I think
by
he's
that?
talking about those jump seats, like we're mentioning.
Yeah.
So
There are jump seats.
yeah, so I'm not sure. Maybe in the low end trims, yes. In the higher end trims, probably not.
Yeah, Mahindra is not moving away from that. I spoke to them as well. They very clearly said that they will be giving those jump seats in any case, because a lot of North India still values those jump seats, because that's where the security guard sits, the guy with the shotgun or the big 12 gauge 12 bore rifle. That's where that guy sits. So मंत्री जी का जो खास करके security है वो वहीं पे बैठता है. So वो सीट हिलने वाला नहीं है.
Soumya, we've already mentioned that the booking is open for the Hyryder and the launch will take place in August. And Manish, I completely agree with you. I have been having difficulty all day with the pronunciation of this car.
Absolutely, absolutely. I've been having a discussion with another colleague.
I've been calling it Hyryder throughout.
And we just figure out what and why is this Hyryder and what is Hyryder and why a HY and not a HI,
Yeah.
all sorts of things. But yeah, nomenclature, well, there's no understanding it, because keep in mind, at the end of the day, it's not entirely the manufacturer also works on this. There are lots of agencies who are absolutely, blind people walking in the dark. situation. So yes, you can get some. Sometimes you just do encounter absurdity like this. My friend called it hair dryer. Yes. Well, that's a new one.
Terrible.
I probably will use that in an Insta post.
Okay, moving on to the other bits of news. We know that Hyundai is readying a sportier Venue N line to go with the facelifted compact SUV, but a recent leaked RTO document suggests the N line variant of the Venue will be available in two variants, but with just a 7-speed DCT. What's also expected is a sportier exhaust and suspension tuning. We're also expecting the list of features that are already available in two of the highest variants of the Venue to be available in the N line trim as well. That's not the only news from Hyundai this week. While we still await the launch of the Ioniq 5 SUV in India, the brand has globally unveiled the upcoming Ioniq 6 sedan, which will ride on the same eGMP platform as the Ioniq 5 and Kia EV6, and is the first sedan in the Ioniq lineup. Striking features of the sedan are camera-based wing mirrors, sharply sloping rear pillar that extends into the trunk, full-width LED taillights with a dot pattern at the rear, and the sedan is aerodynamically designed to produce 0.21 drag coefficient. The range capabilities might be a little improved, but the battery and other internals are anticipated to be identical to the Ioniq 5. The sedan will also be able to use a fast charging 800 volt system, a fast charging system. And moving on, there's news from Volkswagen as well on electric sedans. They have unveiled the brand's first ever fully electric sedan concept called the ID Aero. It's the sixth member of Volkswagen's ID family. This concept is over 5 meters long, and the manufacturer says that aerodynamic concepts were included in the design process. It is claimed that the ID Aero has a low drag coefficient of 0.23. The modular electric drive matrix design of the Volkswagen Group serves as the foundation for the ID Aero. From the hatchbacks to the ID Buzz van, this adaptable modular chassis may be used for a variety of vehicles. The Volkswagen ID Aero is anticipated to come with a battery pack that has a capacity of 77 kilowatt hour. According to the WLTP cycle, the electric luxury vehicle has a range of 620 kilometers on a single charge. The Volkswagen ID Aero will make it to production in 2023 for sale in the Chinese, European, and American markets, and will take on the likes of the BMW i4 and Tesla Model 3. Rohit, there's motorcycle news as well. So,
yes, so let's start with Ducati. Ducati has expanded its Scrambler lineup in India with the introduction of the urban Motard variant. So it is launched at about 11.49 lakh rupees ex-showroom. The mechanicals are obviously shared with the regular Scrambler lineup, but the distinctive elements are, of course, that high beak mud flap that you see. It's got a different paint scheme as well, and the lower set aluminum handlebar. This one runs on 17-inch wheels that are shod with the Pirelli Diablo Rosso 3 tires. Quite a sticky pair that, and that's another hooligan added to the lineup essentially. So now you have a choice between this, the Ducati Monster 950, and of course the Hyper Motard as well. So that's the news from the Ducati lineup. There is another naked motorcycle out there that's coming very soon to the Indian market, and that is the Suzuki Katana. For all auto enthusiasts out there from India, you would remember that this vehicle was showcased to the Indian audience at the Auto Expo just before the pandemic hit us. And they were sort of contemplating, then they even unofficially told us that it may not come to India, but finally it is coming to India, and it is already being teased on their own social media handles. This is based on the Suzuki GSX-S 1000, and recently it was updated in the global markets to meet the Euro 5 emission norms. So it got a revised exhaust system, a revised airbox, etc. And that expected price tag of 12 lakh rupees is what is very, very tempting. It's a liter class naked. It's got a lot of pedigree with that Katana name to it. I think they've done a phenomenal job with the styling, especially looking at what the GSX S1000 looks like. You know, building a Katana on top of that, I think has been a phenomenal design job as well. And knowing how capable that K5 motor is, that 999cc motor is, I'm sure this is going to be just as sharp as the name suggests. So Let's just hope that they price it really well. The launch is not too far away. In fact, stay tuned to Overdrive. I think that launch is going to happen in the coming week, so we will have all the info for you. Suzuki hasn't really let out a date, but from what we hear, it's going to be in the coming week. So if you have been waiting to get yourself the Katana, you know where to head and where to put down that booking amount. Back to you, Sohini, Bert.
Yeah, there's another question about Siddharth wants to know that now that Mahindra has launched the Scorpio-N, does it make sense for from Mahindra's point of view to launch the long remote 5-door Thar, as the Scorpio-N can also do off-roading and it offers more space?
Bert, do you have any info on the 5-door Thar? Because whatever I have
Okay.
been speaking to the people at Mahindra, everyone seems to be on the fence about whether it's happening, not happening. We haven't seen any
So I'll tell you where the
testings.
problem came, where the problem lies effectively, and the problem essentially lies in the jigs that Mahindra has to make, the fixtures, and the dies that Mahindra has to make for the 5-door, and they've been facing a lot of issues in that, and that's why the project got delayed. It got delayed to an extent where we're no longer sure at what point will that 5-door come in. Now, will it come in? The only other thing I can see is that the 5-door Thar will happen now that the Scorpio is out, and all of this, the Thar, the XUV, the Scorpio, it's all out of their system. The only one now being the electric vehicle that they will come up with. They will have the time to devote to the Thar and then figure out when they want to release that 5-door version. But they are quite, I would say, positive. Not, I would say positive, but they were eagerly looking forward to doing a 5-door Thar. What they do understand is that there is a market for that, and there are consumers looking for a 5-door Thar and who want that additional space. Which also means, I mean, they had to elongate that wheelbase, make it a little larger. So there's a lot of work, and those dies and those fixtures, all of that rejigging, retooling is where the challenges lay for the Thar, and that's essentially what has delayed the project for so long. Also, Nitin Joshua, if you're watching, I mean, I did use your Toyota hair dryer, and it's gone out of my social media feed right now. So thank you for that. Then I'm expecting a Toyota any moment.
I think both you recently had a chat with Volkswagen about this, but Mangesh wants to know how long before we can see a Volkswagen EV in India.
Mangesh, there will still be some time before Volkswagen comes out with an electric vehicle in India. Keep in mind, the segments that they offer an EV in India won't exactly be affordable. They would want to afford an EV in India, would exactly be affordable for that matter. But there is work going on that, and I'm assuming we will hear some news on it by the end of the year. About a new EV or something that they're going to be lining up for the Indian market. We do know is that what we do know is that the ID4 is probably one of those. Should be slightly higher up the order, not exactly an affordable EV, but a premium EV. But it would be a very interesting product for the Indian market.
Nitin Joshua wants to know which among the Honda City Hybrid or the Virtus GD offers a good balance of performance and fuel efficiency.
Wow. Okay.
I think we should answer this question next week with a
Yes.
review.
Yes.
So as we speak, the other half of our team is wrapping up a shoot with these very vehicles. So by next week, we'll have you numbers, not just a verdict on this, but also the numbers that you would be interested in. So just stay tuned. We'll have it up shortly.
Right. Any information on the Tucson facelift launch?
Yes, it's not too far away. Pavanaj, it'll
2
be
weeks
very,
from
very
now.
shortly announced. It's just round the corner. And when I say
Just
round the
2 weeks
corner,
from now.
less than a week, actually. 2 weeks? Do we have that much time? I think it's somewhere less than a week,
Yeah,
Rohit. Yeah,
2
just about a
weeks.
week.
14, 2 weeks from now.
14th, yeah, oh, sorry, yeah, right. 14. 13th is the
14.
launch, and
13th is the
14th,
launch, and 14th is when we will drive the car.
13th of July is when the launch happens, and 14th is when we will be driving the car. Yeah.
All right. Gaurav wants to know, is the Superb LNK 2022 model the right choice in the current situation?
I'm not sure what is the current situation that
Current
you're referring
situation.
to. Yeah, but I'm not sure what it is, but the Superb LNK is a superb choice. Just go for it. Close your eyes, sign that check, and make Skoda happy. And yourself too.
Rohit, any news on TVS's new launch?
Yeah, I don't know what it's called. Ronin, Zeppelin, Taurus, maybe. I don't know because I have it right here. See, that is the logo for the new launch. That's the invitation box. So it says T. So I'm not sure if it's Ronin or Zeppelin. I think it's going to be called a Taurus. That is what I think. I don't know. But yeah, we are going to be riding that motorcycle next week, 6th and 7th to be precise. And 6th evening is the launch. So stay tuned to Overdrive. I'll get you all the info. I'm going to be present there myself. So I'll get you all the information from the launch. Make sure that you are logged into the Overdrive social media handles to check it out.
Okay, and what can we expect the Hyryder's pricing to be?
Well, it's
An
got a
estimate.
hybrid. The Hyryder has got a hybrid. It's also got the Toyota badge on it. So I'm very sure it's going to come at a premium. It's going to be the costliest Hyryder you will ever buy.
Black and Decker.
Maybe costlier than that.
But yeah, it'll be somewhere in the price range of where the Creta is. The all-wheel drive will
Or
go a
maybe
little
more, or maybe more with that hybrid system,
could
maybe
be
even more.
Yeah, with assume at least another couple of lakhs more than that. So you're looking at the high, so the low 20s, somewhere thereabouts, because with the four-wheel drive hybrid powertrain, it will be expensive, yes. Interestingly,
myself-
this is the same version that will come out of Maruti, and this will also be the most expensive Maruti that has ever
ever.
been offered, a Maruti SUV that has been offered. I don't exactly remember where the Kizashi was priced. If I'm not mistaken, the Kizashi also was in the 17-18 lakh bracket. The Suzuki's version of the Hyryder, the Hyryder, could also effectively be the most expensive that they have offered, manufactured also for that matter in India. They have offered CVUs that are more expensive in India before, but this will be the most expensive manufactured, made in India.
Okay, and Manish Pandey wanted to know whether the Hyryder and the Brezza are on the same platform.
No, they're two completely different platforms. The Brezza is a much older platform. The Hyryder and what will come out from Suzuki in the future is an entirely different platform.
And Rohit, Mayur wanted to know, what are these Scrambler type of motorcycles? What is their purpose?
Scrambling. That is what the purpose is. They're essentially something that you can take off the road, on the road, enjoy both terrains without really needing a hefty adventure motorcycle to do all of that. So that is what the Scrambler is. That's the name. It's for you to scramble around everywhere. Back in the day, obviously, these were vehicles that you would use in your backyard. Maybe ride around your farm on, and then if the need be, also ride to the market to pick your eggs. So that is what these motorcycles are all about. And now Ducati has, looking at the success of the Scrambler, looking at where the price point is, they've sort of expanded the variant lineup. So there is a little bit of change here and there, and you have different variations of the motorcycle that you can buy, pick and choose as per your riding style.
Okay, we'll take one last question. Nitin Joshua wants to know, where is Maruti going with 14 lakhs for Brezza, a sub-compact SUV?
Well, every car is getting expensive out there right now. I mean, look at the Hyundai i20. That's around the same price bracket. If you get the N-Line, that's around the same price bracket. So you're talking about a hatchback at 14, 15 lakh rupees. So here, going with the trend, big crossovers or high riding crossovers, Maruti is capitalizing on that. And that should also tell us where Maruti's version of the hair dryer is going to be placed. And Toyota is obviously going to be at a premium. So it sort of makes space for those vehicles to command a premium as well. So yeah, and even at that price, it is still going to remain one of the best-selling sub 4 meter crossovers out there.
Also, keep in mind, guys, I mentioned this earlier as well. Prices of commodities have gone up. Inflation is increasing, so everything is getting a little more expensive. And this does not just affect the cost of onions and potatoes and tomatoes in your household. It also affects the cost of products that are used or other components that are used in making cars. And essentially, this is where prices of all products, all cars for that matter, are going up. All cars, all motorcycles, all scooters. The automotive industry is also facing this challenge where prices are going up steadily.
And also, I guess if we want tech cars, if we want a lot of tech in our cars and ventilated seats and every kind of gizmo,
No, I
then
don't want tech
obviously
in
the
my
prices
cars.
are
I'm
going to
sorry.
get.
I don't want tech in my cars. I want a car that just drives well. And that
But
feels good.
people seem to want it now, but when we are comparing features and we say, but
Yeah, and
this one has a
that's
wireless
why they're having to wait for
charger.
like 18 months and 20 months,
Yeah.
and then they will cry about, "Arey, nahi, delivery nahi mila, but can you please help me expedite my delivery?" And I will get all these innate messages.
No, here's that interesting bit. So I think the Citroën C3 will sort of tell us, what people really want, because that car hardly has anything. If that car is able to sell in big numbers, that
Well,
clearly
you
means that
said
there
it
are going
there.
to be
That car hardly has anything. I'm not sure.
anything. So that's
Should
like
I
the basic
extend that
car,
to the
but with a lot of
mechanical
space.
and the electronics, or should I, just keep it to the electronics? And
Exactly. So I
it's
think
a,
that will be a good
that's a
case
very
study.
loaded statement that you made there. That car has anything.
But then again, when we go and sit and do these comparison tests, we will compare it, saying that the feature list of the competitors is so much more compared to this one. So that's why even people
But
would
that's our
probably
job at
look
the end of the day.
today.
That's our job at the end of the day. We're just putting
No,
out
I'm
the
just
facts
saying
over
that
there and
people
saying that we
also
can have
want
this
more
and
tech.
that.
No,
I don't
people definitely
encourage it.
want
I think we're
people
losing the plot
definitely
by
want
adding
more
too much
tech.
technology.
Like in my Scorpio review right now, a lot of people are coming and commenting, why do you need an electronic parking brake in an off-road vehicle? I refuse to say that the Scorpio is an off-road vehicle only, because people today want the convenience as well. Again, I am not for big panoramic sunroofs, but people today want that. That's one of the most common feedback that we got after the walk around review went up, or the walk around video went up, that why haven't they done a panoramic roof at this price point? So people want the features more than anything else right now, and that is also one of the reasons why Hyundai, Kia are just laughing their way to the banks right now, because they are the most feature loaded vehicles in their respective segments, and people seem to be wanting that now.
We'll take one last
No, you're
question.
absolutely
Any
right, Rohit. But there's another point that I want to make, and I think I mentioned this earlier also. One of the challenges of this is that while people think this is techy and this is futuristic and all of that, let's just dump bullshit all over that statement, because these are not techy in that sense. From what I understand is
True.
the reason why the semiconductors are not available for these systems is also because the automotive industry uses semiconductors that are like 2 generations old or 3 generations old, and the semiconductor industry is not prepared any longer, or does not have the capacity any longer, to dial back their production and their development and say, oh, you know what, I will manufacture something that was popular 3 generations down. When the rest of the industry, which is the mobile, the smartphone industry, and various other electronics, have already moved on 3 generations, and there is a lot more to be reaped and a lot more to be benefited from, supplying to that generation, the later generations. It just doesn't make sense to go back, 3 generations down and say, okay, fine, old system, old technology, let me provide you with semiconductors for that. I'm sorry, I don't think anyone's in the business of doing that.
True.
Okay, and one last question. Ashok Shankar wants to know, any idea why Mahindra is not coming up with ventilated seats even in the top end models of the XUV 700 and the Scorpio-N?
Ashok, who is giving ventilated seats in the rear end for that matter? There was another question where someone asked for ventilated seats in the rear bench, I think, I
Rear
believe.
bench, yeah. That's,
Well, nobody gives you ventilated seats in the rear bench. It just complicates the entire plumbing system for the ventilation, even the fans. There are complications with doing that in the rear seats, for that matter. But yes, Mahindra should certainly have given ventilated seats even in the top end models for both XUV 700 and the Scorpio-N, and that is a big miss. In our country, in our conditions, ventilated seats are an absolute benefit, and I think they kind of should certainly go back to the drawing board and look and see how they can offer ventilated seats. If Hyundai and Kia can start offering that on their cars, the Seltos and the Alcazar, then I don't see why Mahindra cannot offer it on the Scorpio, and if not the Scorpio, at least on the XP7W.
okay. Ashok basically was asking about the front heating, but I guess you've anyway answered that question. Okay, we'll take one final question
Well,
from Sushant. Rohit, any update for the Interceptor 650 from Royal Enfield expected in the future?
I'm not sure. I'm not very sure. There will be an update to the 650 lineup in the sense that there will be new variants that will be added. The Shotgun 650 has been spied recently in its near production avatar, very similar to the SG 650 concept that was shown. So that vehicle, I think, would be added sometime this year or early next year. But that's the only bit of update that I know of. Yeah, there could be new colors that might come out on the Interceptor 650 or even the Conti GT 650, but that's about it. No real word from Royal Enfield on that. But yeah, Royal Enfield has been steadily rolling out new products almost every few months, at least in terms of updates or brand new variants or brand new products altogether. So like I said, that Shotgun 650 is the next big update to the 650 lineup that's coming. I'm not sure if there are any micro updates for the Interceptor or the Conti GT.
All right, guys. Just before we wrap up, let's quickly take you through what we have on the show this weekend on CNBC TV 18 at 1 p.m.
This is the Mahindra factory in Chakan that rolls out the XUVs, the Scorpios, including this, the new big daddy of SUVs, the new Scorpio-N. That's what they like to call it. So what do you call a factory that rolls out such satisfactory products? A satisfactory. Sorry, dad jokes. Let's get on with the review.
For the longest time, the Maruti Suzuki Ertiga has been your default choice if you wanted an affordable but still useful family MPV. But that hasn't been the case lately, with the Renault Triber at one end and the Kia Carens at the other. So to keep the Ertiga in the fight, Maruti Suzuki has given it a slight nip and tuck. We're here today to see what's changed, considering you get a new engine and a wider range of CNG options.
But I had just seen a question that Mayur had asked a very long time back. When are we going to see you riding a motorcycle, reviewing a motorcycle?
I don't know. Let's see. There are too many people already in the team to review motorcycles, and I don't know if I will ever do one. But let's see. We will probably have something coming up very, very soon. Maybe not an entire
Okay.
review, but of a larger story.
All right, guys, give us a thumbs up if you were happy with all the answers that you got today, and do share this. Not you, people watching, viewers, please. All right, see you guys soon. We'll catch up with you once again.
See ya.
See you.
Have a nice
Good night,
weekend.
everyone.
I know I am.